Well, you might have heard about the major lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and the resulting settlement payment of $418 million. But what does this mean for you as a home buyer or seller? Well, as we all know, the media coverage is largely speculative. Over the past 6 months, I've seen so many news articles that have stated erroneous and misleading things about what buyers will have to do or what will happen to the market as a result of the settlement and its changes. And this has led to a lot of negativity and misinformation. All these misconceptions are important to know about, so be sure to watch until the end. I'm Kathy Williams, and I'm part of Team Williams, a mother-daughter duo in the Orlando, Florida area, and we are your Orlando Relocation Experts. Our goal in this video is to shed light and help you become informed and prepared to enter this market with the changes. So first, let's talk about the changes that have taken place that affect you. Number one, buyer's agent compensation cannot be posted or advertised on the MLS. However, buyer agent compensation can be posted or advertised anywhere else. For example, flyers, signs, emails, websites, anything outside of the multiple listing service. In other words, sellers can still offer buyer agent compensation. It just can't be listed on the MLS. The second major rule is that a buyer-broker agreement must be in place before a buyer agent can show you a home. Now, what is a buyer-broker agreement exactly? This is a document that you and your buyer agent will sign, and the purpose of it is to provide transparency around the obligations between you as the buyer and your buyer agent, whoever you select to represent you. This document states the buyer agent compensation, and it also expresses that the buyer is responsible for paying that compensation should there be a situation where the seller isn't offering buyer agent compensation or it can't be negotiated into the deal. In this market, we are still seeing most sellers offer buyer agent compensation, and I'll give you more details on that later. Now, I'm going to dive into the top 5 misconceptions about the NAR settlement. The first misconception that has to do with who is required to pay the buyer agent. One article I read stated that buyers now will have to shoulder the cost of hiring a real estate agent. This is misleading. First, sellers will still be able to pay the buyer agent compensation if they choose to do so. And Savannah and I are still seeing most sellers in the market offering buyer agent compensation. We have been actively showing homes, and we rarely see a seller offering zero compensation. And that is because it is advantageous for sellers to offer a buyer agent compensation. Now, you might be wondering, why would sellers want to pay the buyer side compensation? Here's the thing. It's costly these days for buyers to purchase a home. Not only are homes valued higher than they were even just a year ago, there are inspection, appraisal fees, closing costs, the cost of moving, all the costs with purchasing a home, making repairs. There's so many things. So if a seller is offering to pay the buyer agent, that's going to help the buyer tremendously. If the seller is offering the buyer agent compensation, it's going to make the home more appealing to more buyers because they don't have to pay their buyer agent compensation on top of all the costs of buying a home. This in turn is really great for the seller because they're going to have a wider pool of interested buyers who will be potentially submitting an offer on the home. Also, sellers, if you want to pay the buyer agent's compensation, you're more likely to get your home for top dollar and have a smooth closing because professional agents are working on both sides of the transaction. The second big misconception is that commissions were not negotiable prior to the settlement and that 6% was the standard compensation determined by brokers. Again, I have seen people in the media misspeak and say that listing agent and buyer agent commissions are negotiable for the first time ever. And the truth is that compensations have always been negotiable between agents and clients, and they will continue to be negotiable. This is not to say that agents cannot have a minimum compensation or fee that they require for services. The compensation of an agent or agents must be agreed between the agent and the buyer or seller in writing. Before I tell you about the third big misconception, I want to let you know that we have a Greater Orlando relocation guide available to you if you click on the link in the description box below. This is a great resource if you're beginning to consider the Orlando area or if you just want to know more about the Greater Orlando area. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We make videos on the real estate market here in Orlando, top neighborhoods and the different areas, new construction, and a lot more. The third misconception is that agents and brokers conspired to artificially inflate commissions. Some news sources claim that the National Association of Realtors set the standard rate. This hurts me especially because I strive to be a trusted advisor to my clients, and this type of language can cause so much distrust. Here's the truth. There is a normal range in the compensation rate that I see, but no one set this rate or conspired to make it the norm. It just became the norm throughout history, just like the price range for haircuts became the norm, and it was generally accepted by the public. On the other hand, I do agree that we really need the buyer-broker agreement or the agreement between the buyer and their agent, because the more transparency around agent compensations, the better for all parties involved. The fourth misconception is that the new settlement will totally rock the housing market and lower home prices. Though it is tough to say for sure what will happen, I don't think the settlement is going to directly result in lower home prices, especially not in the Orlando market. As I mentioned before in previous videos, valuations on homes are based on the recent history of comparable properties, and there are a lot of other market conditions that come into play. Sellers will understandably want to get top dollar for their home and list their home based on market value, which is based on how much comparable homes have sold for in the past 6 months before listing their home. Plus, buyer agents will still need to be paid whether the seller pays or the buyer themselves pays. So, if the buyer has to pay for the compensation, this is going to add to their closing costs and therefore add to the amount that they have to pay to purchase a property. Time will truly tell what's going to happen with home prices and agent compensations, but I don't think that the settlement is going to rock things like the media says it will. The way people buy and sell homes will mostly stay the same. And finally, the fifth misconception is that buyers do not need agent representation. This could not be further from the truth, especially now. A good buyer agent is going to make sure that you get the best deal possible in this market and that you're not overpaying on a house. One of the things that my team does when a buyer would like to submit an offer on a home is we do a comparative market analysis. We pull data for the homes sold in the past 6 months in the neighborhood or in the area of the subject property. Now, in a nutshell, we compare the property that our client is interested in with the sold homes to determine a fair market value of the property. This is one of the many things that we do as buyer agents to help the buyer find the right home and make a good investment. Real estate is complex, and people will continue to need guidance to navigate not only the market, but also getting to the closing table. Would you ever be your own attorney, your own doctor? What about your own roofer or electrician? Real estate is a huge investment and transactions can be complex. There are a lot of moving parts and parties involved, so it's crucial to have someone in your corner every step of the way for your protection and navigation in this market. As experienced agents, we know that there are many ways that a real estate transaction can go wrong. So we can foresee those kinds of things and make sure you're informed, prepared, or that you altogether avoid any mishaps. By the way, if you're thinking about buying or selling in the greater Orlando area, we would be more than happy to help you. You can find our contact info in the description box below. And remember, we also have a guide about relocating to the greater Orlando area, and you can download that as well. We hope that you found this video helpful and look forward to connecting with you. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.